Hey everybody, welcome back to Deep Space. My name is Ben. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor. And here at Deep Space, we're just talking about things that matter. We're talking about things that go on beneath the surface for us. And today, I thought we would talk about a question that comes up in my office every once in a while. It's something that I've experienced in my own life. I thought I'd talk a little bit about kind of my own experience with it. And that is a version or a side of anxiety. Anxiety can be pretty nasty. In the world of mental health, it's pretty common. A lot of people have it. Mostly, what anxiety is it's feelings of fear, but without like any direct cause or reason for it that we can identify. And so, what can end up happening is the anxiety itself can be so gnarly that, and the experience of it can be so nasty, that we end up getting anxious about what if that feeling happens? What if that feeling happens while I'm at this party? Or what if that feeling happens when I'm hanging out with these people? That's more social anxiety. It can happen too of what if it happens when I leave the house? And so the fear of it happening, the what if, can create it and can start the anxiety cycle. So it happens a lot, and it's pretty common, and it can be super uncomfortable. It can even lead to panic attacks and things that can make people end up in the ER thinking they're dying because it's so intense. So one of the questions I get about anxiety, people that are working on it, it comes from people that are working on it, and actually it's a question that comes from people that are making progress on it. I work with a lot of anxiety, work with a lot of people that have it. I've experienced it myself, and one of the things that comes up is, Ben, I thought I was making progress on my anxiety. Not only on my anxiety, but I felt like I was making progress on my issues in general. Like I felt like I was understanding myself better. I felt like I feel like I've been growing. I feel like I've been making progress, and yet my anxiety feels worse than ever. Am I doing it wrong? Am I not working on the right stuff? Am I in the wrong place? Questions like that. So there's a whole slew of reasons why that could be, why your anxiety is worsening, and they might not all be this, but there is one reason that I've experienced myself that makes me feel better. Here's just a story from my own life, or just a little background on me. When I was in college, and those of you that knew me in college, this story, just talking about this part of my life it's super embarrassing. So just know that I am so sorry for what a jackass I was for so long, but got that on tape. That was a good one, right? I felt like a really good one. Basically, and not just college, but some of you in high school too. I look back on those times and think, I didn't feel any anxiety. I had no anxiety. In fact, I didn't even have any sort of identification of anxiety in my own life until after I had been a therapist for a while, and I've been kind of exploring mental health, and I've been doing some of the things we talk about doing here on Deep Space, using my insight to understand myself better. And it's around then that I started to experience like, whoa, what is this overwhelming rush of emotion that I just feel like there's tears in my eyes and that I got to get out of here, and I'm starting to sweat and I don't know why. What is this all about? And I started to identify those things and started to try to work my way through them. And so I was looking back and I'm thinking, I've never experienced anything like this. Why not? And I think I have a theory, and those of you that knew me in college, this theory will probably make sense. I think what happened is that back in the day, when I would be in a social situation or I'd be in a group, kind of the things that sometimes make me anxious now, and we'd be having conversations, or we'd be all trying to connect as a group, and if that anxiety would happen, I look back on the way that I behaved in those groups, and really pretty embarrassing, like the stuff how I typically operated in groups, I think had to do with my anxiety. I don't think I even knew it. I don't think I even recognized that I was having anxiety. I think anytime that feeling would even start, I would steer the conversation into a direction that made me feel more comfortable. So I would talk about things that I thought made me an interesting, cool person. So I would talk about traveling, and I would talk about my history in sports, and I would talk about stuff that would kind of be like, hey, look at me. And so I kind of become the center of attention. Those of you that knew me, you probably know what I'm talking about, and it's really embarrassing to admit it. And one of the things that one of the ways that would play out too would be I would try to get girls to be attracted to me or like me. And if I could tell that they were into me, while we're talking about how cool my past is and all that, then I would feel better. And I wouldn't even know that I was doing it. All I was doing was just doing what I felt like. And I ended up looking back. I look back on those times pretty embarrassed. I was just like, oh my word, dude, get a job. What a tool. I try to become the center of attention a lot to work my way through social situations. I look now, as I've been working to understand myself better, and as I've been working through exploring like what makes me tick, what makes me who I am. Now I don't want to be that guy. I can't tolerate it. Like if I'm at a party now and a conversation comes up and it's one that like, I could talk about something that would kind of, maybe be the kind of thing that I would have talked about before that made me feel like I'm interesting or something. I literally am just like, I'm going to steer away from that conversation just because I don't want to be that, hey, look at me guy that I maybe was in college. So what that means though is that when I don't have what I used to have as tools for managing my anxiety without realizing, when I don't have my natural coping mechanisms because I now understand them and I see them and I don't use them, then what do I have? Anxiety. Then I'm left with the way that I feel. And so I'm not going to become the center of attention. I'm not going to start hitting on girls so that I can feel better about myself. Which, God, I hate even saying that because it's so embarrassing. But I did. I think that's how I used to do it. And I don't do that anymore. And so instead I'm left with this, just like I am sitting here with my emotions. I'm sitting here with how I feel in this group. I'm not firing up what I used to fire up to make them go away. So I think sometimes what happens with my clients or what happens with people that are growing, that are evolving, they're becoming more aware of who they actually are. So with that means an awareness of what they sometimes do or used to do to make themselves feel better, and they're not into it anymore. It doesn't work for them anymore. So instead of doing the stuff, maybe it's becoming really loud and outgoing, or maybe it's becoming super quiet and introverted and going back into a corner, or maybe it's drinking a bunch of alcohol or becoming promiscuous or just whatever. They now know that's what I used to do to make my anxiety go away, and I don't want to do it anymore, which leaves them instead with a more pure, authentic version of themselves. And the truth is they're anxious at that moment, and they're facing that anxiety in the moment. Now I have an awareness of how I feel, and I have an awareness of that anxiety, and I don't allow myself to instinctively, reflexively just fall into old patterns to make that anxiety go away, which means I have to face the anxiety myself, and I actually have to deal with it. If you're discovering more of who you are, if you feel like you have a better sense of you and you're more attuned and you're more grounded and you're more honest and you're more authentic, and yet your anxiety is increasing, that might not be the worst thing. I know anxiety sucks and we don't want to have it and we want to keep working on it, but now you're getting to a place, and I'm getting to a place where we can address our anxiety for what it actually is. So instead of like becoming the center of attention, I can now, probably not in that moment, but I can then go back and say, how are my insecurities doing? Do I wonder about that? Am I not sure? Am I going into these environments not knowing if I'm acceptable? How much better to face that and to deal with that and to address that? And that's a great thing to address in therapy, to go with and explore with somebody. Where did it come from? Why am I feeling like I'm not good enough to be at this party or to connect with these people, or not interesting enough? Where's that feeling coming from? And how about addressing that, which is what I really want to do now, instead of, what I'm going to do is just reflexively put a lampshade over my head and act like an idiot. Because at least then I've got people laughing and my sense of humor is disarming them, and so I don't feel so anxious anymore. And because when I do that, and when I did that for how long? Decades. I never even knew that I was even feeling that. But then then those feelings, if they would ever get triggered in a context where I couldn't avoid them, I couldn't run away from them, would really feel pretty heavy, and I'd have to deal with them in that way. So doing this, like kind of what we do in Deep Space and what I work on in therapy, is it's really about authenticity. It's really about honesty. It's about facing things as they actually are and owning them, dealing with them, instead of letting them sort of drive you without you even knowing you're being driven by it. That's what like mindsight, like we talked about in the last video, that's what self-reflection, self-exploration is really all about, is being able to be aware and attuned to, hey, there are things that drive the way that you feel. There are things that drive your behaviors. There are reasons why you act the way that you act. And they might not be things that you even know about. How cool to be able to address them for what they really are. See them, deal with them, face the real you, and then let the real you get to work, right? So that you can go to a party, and yeah, it might mean you go to that party and you're now, shoot, I'm not going to throw the lampshade over my head. I'm not going to be crazy. What am I going to be? Because I want to be the guy that I actually am. I don't want to be the guy that has to fall into these patterns of like, you know how I feel comfortable? I get really drunk and I become the center of attention. I don't want to hit on girls to feel better. I mean, it doesn't fit my life now anyway. What I want to do is I want to be able to experience what I'm actually experiencing and then face it the way that I want to face it, with my actual identity, with my true self, who I actually am. I feel better about my anxiety when I think of it from that perspective. It feels like, no, it's not getting worse. I'm getting better. Guys, I am with you in that journey. I love to explore that stuff, and so to my clients, we're going to keep working on that stuff. We're going to keep finding out who you actually are and exploring what makes you you, and then giving you the space to actually face that and to feel your anxiety and to talk about it and not be scared of it and not run away from it. To my friends and to my family, I love you. You are always welcome to be the real you with me. I love you for who you are. You don't have to do the things that make you feel more comfortable to be able to be around me. I want you to be you. And to those of you that I don't know, I want that for you too. Be yourselves, face what's real, be honest, be open. It's just like we talked about in the very second video. Get curious about yourself and face what's going on inside of you authentically, honestly, and even if it makes things harder in the short term, it's better, right? It's a better way to live. Feel free to shoot me an email, Instagram, Facebook. There's lots of ways of getting a hold of Deep Space. And feel free to share this with anybody that could be into this sort of a thing. So I love you guys so much. Peace and love. Be real. Face things as they are. Love you guys. Bye.